All right. I don't remember who's going to be in or out this week, so we'll go ahead and jump in. I got a few things in the agenda. The first up is my topic on the roadmap review. So we've been in the midst of doing the dark mode rollout by stage group. I've been talking with Sam and Chris about this, and I think we want to try to target supporting 10 teams directly with the dark mode rollout before we try to transition fully to a self-serve model. So we've already got 5 in progress, and the process seems to be going well. Um, so I'd like some of our next teams to be some of the more high stakes, more banner teams that we have held off working with so far because they have more limited time and availability to work with us. So that's teams like code review, duo chat teams, the project management teams. I'll start conversations on those whenever we deem that we have capacity to start working with them. But you should be looking at those as being some of the next ones to come down the pipe. Um, Now, Jeremy has been authoring really good docs on how to actually perform this audit, and I think he's got an MR open to get that into the handbook. We can certainly publish that whenever. I just think that we're probably not going to get a lot of organic adoption on this, so we're going to have to poke and prod folks to make sure to add this to their OKRs, and with the Q1 OKRs being due in a couple of weeks, we've probably missed the boat on that one. So we'll just want to make sure that like for Q2, we got everything lined up and buttoned up so that folks can plan for that as part of their quarterly plans. That'll make sense? Thoughts, concerns?
You mentioned working with 5 groups. I've only got 4 on my things that I've written down. Which one am I missing? I've got knowledge, source code, pipeline execution, and import and integrate.
We just kicked off with global search.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
Yeah. Yes, that'll, I think Dan is looking into that like this week. So I don't think there's anything done yet, but it is a technically in progress. I take your word for it, Dan. Cool. Well, as ever, like this is the target. We'll adapt as things change or as we learn more. But this is just what we should be kind of expecting for the next few milestones. All right. And on the flip side, looking at those that are in progress, how are things looking for the various rollouts? Sam, you get the first point.
I do, yeah. My first point is that I have delegated this to everyone else, right? So there's 4. We have 4 engineers, so I've given each one like their own group, their own epic to look at and work with and build those relationships, right? I think I said it's not their responsibility to do all the work, but it is their responsibility to make sure it gets done, right? So talk to them engineers on the teams that you've been assigned to, talk with product and product design on our team and their team, and speak up, speak to each other about anything that's a bit unknown or uncertain. But yeah, the sorry, read only is okay. Dan, do you want to talk about that? I've not. You'll just watch me read it if you don't say it out loud.
Sure. I'm I'm still catching up on everything after the holidays, but I saw an MR earlier today, and I was wondering, have we had design DRI signed off for all of the suggestions and recommendations and the issues, or are we just going to proceed with what we've found and identified as a recommendation for that designer and ask them for forgiveness later?
We should not be asking for forgiveness. I will say that up front. Like there are other teams that have done that and it has worked out very poorly. I thought that a lot of this had already gotten some level of sign off from the sessions that you and Jeremy have had with the designers as you've been wrapping things up, right? So I didn't think there was anything in there that was too onerous or that wasn't already flagged and assigned to the designer like, hey, you need to figure out what to do with this, right? Like some of those visualization things. We're not jumping in to try to answer that for them. Maybe we'll prod them along, but that's not our place to decide.
Is
On that
the
topic.
Sorry, go.
Sorry, James. I was just going to ask if the design DRI is obvious for each of these epics, right? So that we can, as we're going through, tag them in things. So we might not have sign off on what we should work on, but at least we can have it on. Does this MR make sense, right? Like,
We should have it easily for knowledge, for source code, for pipeline execution. Those are just the designers for those teams. As we're looking at global search and import, they don't have designers, so we'll probably have to lean on the PMs there. I don't know that we'll get quite the level of design review that we would get from working with the designer, but we could at least make sure that they stay in the loop.
yeah, I think we're more looking for, is this a no or are we okay than like
Yeah,
any major
exactly.
feedback, right? Like,
Exactly. Yeah, but I mean, really, as long as we're being collaborative, it should all be fine. I just don't want anyone to come back and say, like, oh, design system team came in and took over and wrecked all of our stuff and didn't talk to us, right? Like, we should be working with everyone.
On that, I wanted to ask who we should be asking to review each MR. So should it be the designer of that group? And also, should for front end, should it be a front end engineer in that group?
I would leave this to everyone's judgment. A lot of the findings that I've seen are mechanical. Like they don't change how things look. It's just purely an implementation level detail to move away from some legacy variable to CSS variables and design tokens, right? I don't think there's necessarily any reason to involve anybody on the source team for that because our team is the domain experts for it. I think when it's changing things, like even if it's changing a color ever so slightly, making sure that their designers and their engineers are looped in would be important. And certainly if you're going to changing something that's more involved, like um, using a pajamas component in a place that was previously bespoke, making sure their engineers are looped into that because they're going to be the ones to maintain it going forward.
So for the UX review, it would just be like assigned at random, like a normal MR, like whatever the GitLab bot says.
I'm not familiar enough with the UX review process to answer that, I think.
If you tag it up with the label of the group who owns the feature, the review bot will suggest the product designer for that group. So if you tag your work as group design system, it'll say me or Jeremy should review it. But if you tag it up as group knowledge, it will flag it for it will prompt you to get Alex to review it.
Yeah, that sounds
So
perfect.
which should I tag it as?
Well, I think it sounds like it's like any other merge quest. So when you think the changes warrant domain expertise, as in when we're changing something, then maybe go for the product designer that's in the group. If it's just a mechanical change, like and has no actual visible impact, then any reviewer of the appropriate, you know, design or front end or whatever probably makes sense to me. I think.
Yeah, that sounds right. And I can put all of this in an issue or somewhere so we've got it documented. This is the first time that we're actually going through this. A lot of these findings haven't been implemented or they've been picked up by Papercuts, who has their own process for getting stuff through. So as we can iterate on it, right? If we find that something isn't working, it's too heavy or it's too lightweight, we can always make adjustments. But I'll put a to-do down to document at least what we've discussed here in an issue, probably on that main epic, so that we have it for reference.
Added a note on it. I think for things about how design tokens work and be applied, the people with the most knowledge are in within our group. Um, but also this is a good chance. I think that these would be a good chance to share knowledge about this stuff with feature teams. So it might be at the beginning while we're all getting comfortable to it. It almost has a within design system team review and the outside team review to make sure we're all everything's working as we expect, perhaps.
So early on, you suggest having both sides of design review it. Look at, our team is the expert, so we review it just to make sure that it's right, but then loop the others in mostly as an FYI.
Yeah, I think where our team can provide really good reviews is this the right design token for the right situation? Does it match
Hmm.
up how we're expecting, and does it work? Um, whereas the right now the designers on the teams don't have enough knowledge or context for design tokens to say, oh, this is the
Yeah,
right design token to use.
that makes sense.
And those design tokens defined in the issue, though, isn't that the like?
It
Isn't that the
varies
whole
by
point
issue.
of the? Oh, okay.
Um, some of them have really obvious, like, use this because it's exactly what this is intended for. Others are a bit more open to interpretation and may require some back and forth with the designers.
Okay. I'm just thinking for when we do give this to groups to just self-serve, like we can't give them ambiguity if we want to be
Yes,
specific about, do you know what I mean, right? Like,
absolutely. That's a lot of what Jeremy's um, playbook is looking to address.
okay, makes sense. Um, I've got the next question as well about expect
Yeah.
when we can expect the issues for import and integrate to be ready. Um, I I'll try again. I have assigned Flory to this, but Flory has also been on the team for like a week, so I'm not expecting it to be ready to go on this immediately either. It was just if this was going to be 2 months, then we'd need to look at something else. If it's going to be a week, which it sounds like it is, then that's largely fine. Just let me know when it's ready. I'm just having to go through stuff with Scott at the minute so she can get up to speed with what design tokens are, how we migrate things, and all the other bits that um, design system uh, as a team does, I guess.
Yeah,
Um,
makes sense. Yeah,
but yeah,
I'm
is
pretty
is
well ready to build out the issues whenever. I've just been waiting for the go ahead from Jeremy. And I know the team has been continuing to like pile additional pages into this effort, which I think is probably still worth the time, but um, I'm ready to go when you are. Just let me know, Jeremy.
Yeah, I those are being added in a separate spreadsheet, which I haven't looked at yet, so I don't know how many more are being added. I can yesterday I had some other priorities I could check right now, but uh yeah, there's already been a lot of pages for this that I think we can start to do create issues for.
Okay.
Something else, Dan, this is kind of addressed to you, but you asked in the other Epic for search what, if anything, has been done different in the last round. And one thing I forgot to mention is that I'm the yellow sticky notes and comments. I am trying to keep those more geared towards dark mode specific rather than everything pajamas. And then anything else that's pajamas not related to dark mode handle in um, the paper cuts type comments. So to back to this point, Jeff, there's probably several in there that would be like just good quick starters in the
Okay.
yellow comments already, where you could go back later and build out issues for all the other things that are being found. But I can you and I can follow up. I can drop you
Yeah,
some comments like
yeah, that'd
in
be perfect.
Figma or mark it ready for dev or whatever. We can go
Okay.
from there. I can let you know.
Yeah, that sounds good. And then Sam, you said, what kind of timeline are you looking for to have issues ready for Flory? Is it like as soon as possible is great, or like she still needs a week to ramp up?
well, I mean, as soon as you get them, put them in.
Okay.
But I've my one-on-one with so Florrie's in Australia, so we only get to we're like
Yeah.
handover at the start and end of each of our days, so I won't get to speak to her till tomorrow morning now. But I'll see where she's at with onboarding and get back to you on that. But
Okay.
I think a week will be fine. 2 weeks probably also fine. Anything beyond that is starting to get into the well, we won't be able to do it definitely in 17.9. So
Yeah, that makes sense.
um,
That makes sense. Yeah, we'll definitely have some stuff ready. I can have something for her within a week, no questions asked.
Perfect.
And we'll see how the requests from import continue to go to see when the final issues for this come in.
Yep. On that, so I just glanced at that. Dan, your read only. Are the new pages expected to change? Already done? I'm not sure at this point because in looking at the spreadsheet, it's actually going through and listing out some of the pages I've already done, but I don't know if there's things I've missed based on configuration or other parts of the UI. So I'm gonna have to do a pass at those just to make sure. So for this one in particular, we've had multiple engineers adding issues at, well, three so far at different times. And there's like because it deals with import, there's like I have to have Jira, excuse me, Jira set up and GitHub and Katia and Bitbucket because each one of these is not using the same template for importing because it pulls in different data. So
Hmm,
that's
that's gnarly.
and as of today, I've been able to get one of those configured successfully. So take that for what you will.
I think
Yeah.
this also means Florey's going to have the same issues. So uh, the need for these is going to be pushed out a little bit further because she'll need to get set up with all of these, uh,
Is
I
this the
guess,
one for Flory to
importers.
start with then?
Pardon?
Is this the one for Flory to start with then?
This group
Yeah,
it's the only one that's left.
fair.
So she's working through with Scott. So when I've assigned people, they're the DRIs for getting these things like sorted, but not necessarily for doing the work, as I've said. So she can work with Scott and get things done there because the source code ones are the ones with I think the most amount of issues, maybe knowledge as well. So she might be able to help James there as well.
Yeah,
There's
they've
work
both
for her
got
to do
ample
while
findings.
we figure this out, right? Like it
Okay.
push.
Okay. Well, just a note for both of you, Sam and Jeremy, like keep an eye on how extensive this audit is becoming. Like our goal is to really hit the highlights and the main flows so that most users will see a good dark mode experience as they're going through the product, right? We're not trying to turn over every stone and fix every tiny little thing.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah, I
fair
don't know if
point.
that's something that you would be willing to step in on too with this
Absolutely.
one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh, because I see there's, as far as import, there's quite a bit there. And it's not clear to me, like, I have no idea as far as like what is the most important ones, like is Katia as important as GitHub import? I would assume no, but I'm just going based on what they're communicating. And so um, if we could say, hey, you know what are the top three of these? Or which ones use the same template? Or, things like that. Because if it's like, if I'm going to go through like and do all this configuration and then at the output, it's like, oh, it's the top border needs a design token like these
Yeah,
other
for
10
sure.
pages. It's like what that's a waste of time, which has happened in this one where I've like done stuff and I'm like, oh, it's only the border. Like that's the only thing.
Yeah, that's painful.
But on the other hand, it's like, oh, this form element has an accessibility problem. It doesn't have to do with dark mode, but it's gonna be something that we have to fix anyways for accessibility. So it's a toss up.
Okay. I will comment on that this afternoon. Thank you for letting me know. Very cool. Dan, thank you again for getting things kicked off with global search. Please, I'll DM you, but thank you for your support. All right,
Cool.
Sam, last item.
Yeah, it's just a quick one based on something Scott said. He was going through the Epic and noticed there was a couple of issues related to like spacing that were in there. I've just said focus on the color ones and essentially ignore them. Like, is that fine for everyone, or were we hoping to focus on things like spacing as well? Like, I don't see the need for that for dark mode. I don't even see the tokens for that. But I might be missing something, right?
Just color. I I think what would be helpful because it's the way I've approached it is like I might get to look at this page once, and we've been wanting to do full page reviews for a long time. And so it's like I can't unsee it, like when something gets flagged. And so I want to make a note of it, but also this accessibility effort is coming up really fast on the heels of this. So anything we notice in there, it's going to be just an opportunity to get out further ahead of that. So it's like if you're already in the page fixing something, and it's like, oh, I could also fix this. Like there might be ways to just batch it and touch something once with a single MR. Um, so take it for what you will. But I think Jeff, I'm probably speaking on your behalf too, but I don't expect anything other than color to be addressed right now. I just want to be like my responsibility theme is like I see this. If I if I don't document it, it's not a bug. It didn't happen, but it's still there. So I for my own self, I have to offload it. So and I'm trying to be better about marking those so that Jeff can identify those and we can get those prioritized correctly. So
Yep, that works for me. So yeah, if it's a quick change and you're there anyway, make the change. But the focus is definitely on the color side of things, right?
Cool. Well, very cool. Well, that was it on the agenda. Did anybody have anything else they wanted to hit on for today?
I've got a vague question.
Mhm.
Um, so we're progressing with 5 groups already, and we want to target supporting 10 teams before we transition to a self-serve model. How does that all fit in with the official dark mode rollout? When do we officially say, hey, we support dark mode?
I'm aiming to go to beta by the end of Q1. So that's like our fiscal year Q1. I think it's like the end of April, something like that. I forget how our calendars are shifted. Um, the reason that we've been prioritizing teams the way we have is that we're specifically looking at the parts of the product that are most heavily used, right? When we transition to beta, we're going to technically have to provide support for this. So if somebody emails our support team saying, hey, this is broken, that means those bugs and those reports have to jump up to the top of our priority queue or potentially the other team's priority queues. So the more we can do to smooth out the most common paths before going to beta, like the better we're going to be in terms of like our impact to teams' reactive response to user defect reports. So I don't have any expectation that the whole product will be perfect by the end of the quarter, but if we have those happy paths in a really good place, then we can continue working over the next, 90, 180 days to get things to a really, really good point so that we can go to GA.
And what marks GA in your mind?
It's a very good question. The way that I've been describing it so far is that like we'll probably be fine to go to GA once we go to beta, but we'll give it 90 days to cook and see what happens, right? If we start getting a lot of defect reports, if we start having teams like introducing new regressions where they're not following dark mode, then we can reevaluate. Um, but I don't exactly know what the final decision is going to be for when we're ready to go to GA. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, good, 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 good.
Is that, sorry, just to go over that again, is you said the aim is Q1. Is that we're saying wherever we are by the end of Q1, we're just going to call it beta, or is there like there's no like what's the word I'm looking for? Like stipulations or targets or
Yeah, I mean,
metrics or anything we need to
based
hit.
on what we've seen from the first 3 or 4 audits, things generally look really good today, right? Like we've done enough of the foundational work. Um,
Mm.
People have adopted pajamas well enough that we could probably flip it right now and we would be fine. Um, so I think at the end of Q1, it's just going to happen, and we're doing our best to support these happy paths just to make sure that we're not increasing the support burden, right? Like it's about being cautious and ensuring that we're leading with quality, rather than trying to focus just on speed.
Okay, makes sense. Oh, sorry, I yawned halfway through that. It's late. It's nothing to do with you. It makes
No, I
sense.
get it. I've been yawning all day too. It's been a heavy coffee kind of week. Cool. Well, thank you all so much for your time today. If you have any more questions or want to talk about any of this timeline or, the bars that we're trying to meet, hit me up. I'm happy to chat about it more.
Also, if I could just show a plug for the playbook that should merge. But as you go through these issues and whatnot, and you work with counterparts, just be familiar with that playbook so that we can make adjustments to that as needed. Because I want that to be kind of evergreen. So if you're like, hey, this part of the playbook is really not working here, or this doesn't make sense, or we need to add this bit of instruction, keep that in mind so that we can keep that updated with things that'll help team self-service. So, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeremy. And that's linked further up in the agenda under the roadmap review section I just started. So take a look. Awesome. Thank you all. I hope you have a great afternoon, and I will catch you later.